Emily Johnson stood at the edge of the cliffside balcony, her fingers clutching the cold metal railing. The view was breathtaking, dense, emerald forest sloping down to a tranquil lake below, with the towering mountain range beyond. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and fresh earth. It should have been a moment of peace, a welcome retreat. But instead, Emily felt only the weight of the inheritance that had come without warning. Her Aunt Linda had always been a force of nature. The woman who had built the cozy boutique hotel from the ground up, turning it into a beloved haven in the mountains for weary travelers. A woman known for her wit, her warmth, and most of all, her ability to make every guest feel like family. Emily had always adored her aunt, visiting the hotel during summers and holidays, absorbing the stories of guests and learning the charm of the business, but never imagining she would one day own it. And now, here she was. The hotel was hers. There was no warning, just a letter. Linda had passed away unexpectedly from a sudden illness, and all the legal papers had been sorted swiftly, leaving Emily as the sole heir to the family business. But Emily, a successful interior designer in the city, had no experience in running a hotel. She wasn't even sure she could keep it running. Her mind swirled with questions. How had things been since Aunt Linda's death? Had the hotel thrived or slipped into disrepair? Would the charm and the heart of it survive without her aunt's magnetic presence? With a sigh, Emily walked back into the lobby, taking in the familiar decor. The floral wallpaper, the antique wooden furniture, and the cozy lighting. Everything seemed untouched, just as she remembered. But beneath the surface, something felt different. The hotel's records were neatly stacked on the desk. Emily flipped through them, noting the discrepancies, complaints from guests about the quality of service, some unsettling remarks about the staff's attitude. It didn't make sense. Her aunt had always been known for creating an atmosphere of kindness and care. But now, something was amiss. She had inherited more than just a hotel. She had inherited a challenge. And she would face it head-on, despite the uncertainty. The first thing she had to do was understand what was happening. She couldn't just sit back and let things slip into chaos. Emily knew she needed to understand the inner workings of the hotel. But how could she do that without anyone noticing? She had the power to make changes. But what if she made the wrong ones? The only way to truly assess the situation was to dive and become part of the operation and see firsthand what was going wrong. After much deliberation, Emily decided on a bold move. She would take a job as a kitchen assistant undercover, so to speak. No one would know she was the owner. It was a risk, but it was the only way to understand what was really happening behind the scenes. Emily's first day in the kitchen was as chaotic as it was eye-opening. She tied on an apron, rolled up her sleeves, and tried to fit in with the bustle of the kitchen staff. The head chef, Michael, greeted her with a brief nod as he diced vegetables with the precision of a surgeon. He was young, early 30s, maybe, but there was a quiet intensity in his movements, an energy that felt contagious. Emily quickly realized that he was one of the few people who still seemed genuinely passionate about the hotel's legacy. "Just keep up with the chopping," Michael said, handing her a knife. "And don't drop anything." Emily nodded, her hands shaky as she attempted to match his pace. The smell of garlic and fresh herbs filled the air, and for a brief moment she felt something stir within her, an unfamiliar sense of belonging. The rhythm of the kitchen was familiar to her, though she had never worked in one before. She took a deep breath and focused, trying to push the nagging doubt from her mind. But her eyes kept drifting to Sarah, the receptionist, who had been a part of the hotel for years. Emily had observed her aloofness the day before, but now, Sarah's behavior was becoming more pronounced. She was standing in the kitchen doorway, chatting with a guest in an uncomfortably sharp tone. "Sorry, the room is what it is," Sarah was saying. "If you're unhappy, maybe you should have booked somewhere else." Emily's stomach tightened. She had heard about Sarah's brusque attitude, but seeing it firsthand was another matter. The guest's face reddened, but they didn't argue. They simply nodded and walked away. Sarah didn't seem to notice or care. "Who's that?" Emily asked Michael, trying to mask the concern in her voice. "Sarah," Michael said, not glancing up. "She's been here forever. Used to be great at what she did, but now, well, things have changed." Emily's thoughts raced. There it was, the first sign that the charm of the hotel was unraveling, piece by piece. Her thoughts were interrupted by a loud crash from the hallway. A burst of water splashed across the kitchen floor. What the hell was that? Emily spun around to see Victor, The hotel's senior concierge, rushing into the kitchen, his usually composed face now etched with urgency. "There's a leak in the heating system," Victor said, his voice low but firm. "It's flooding the guest rooms. We need to act fast." Emily's heart skipped a beat. Panic set in as she glanced at the kitchen staff, many of whom seemed frozen in place. "Everyone get moving," she barked, trying to push past the shock. She grabbed a stack of towels and rushed toward the lobby. The next few minutes felt like a blur. Michael, without hesitation, was already at the front desk, helping guests evacuate the rooms. Victor was organizing the rest of the staff, directing them to different parts of the hotel to contain the water and prevent further damage. Sarah, however, had disappeared. Emily's frustration mounted. How could someone just walk away when there was a crisis? "Sarah," Emily called as she passed the reception desk. "We need you to help." Sarah turned around, arms crossed. "I'm not trained for this," she snapped. "Let someone else handle it." A cold chill ran through Emily. This wasn't just a poor attitude, this was something far more troubling. She could see it in the eyes of the other staff: disengagement, a lack of ownership. What had happened to the pride the hotel had once inspired? Victor, however, was moving with the steady grace of someone who had been through this before. "Don't worry, Emily," he said with a reassuring smile. "We'll take care of it." And they did. The staff worked tirelessly through the night, drying carpets, mopping floors, and assuring the guests that everything would be back to normal soon. By morning, the damage was contained, and the hotel was functional again, though the mood had shifted. There was a quiet tension now, a crack in the facade that Emily couldn't ignore. That afternoon, Emily called a staff meeting. She needed answers, and she needed them now. The kitchen was quiet, save for the soft clatter of coffee cups, as Emily addressed the group. She had decided it was time to reveal her true identity. The deception had lasted long enough. If she was going to restore the hotel to its former glory, she had to be honest with everyone about her role, about the challenges ahead, and about the responsibility they all shared in preserving Aunt Linda's legacy. "I've been watching," observing Emily began, her voice steady. "I've seen what's been happening at the hotel, both the good and the bad. And I need to be clear, this place is no longer a family business, it's a business in crisis." A murmur of discomfort rippled through the room. Emily's gaze settled on Sarah, who avoided eye contact. "The hotel has always been about warmth and connection. That's what Linda built here. But over the last few months, I've seen cracks in that foundation. Some of you are working harder than I ever imagined, and others, well, others have let things slide." She paused, letting the words sink in. "Sarah, I watched you turn a guest away in a moment of need. You're not showing the care that made this place special. I've got to ask you to leave." Sarah's face went pale. She opened her mouth to protest, but no words came out. Emily's decision was final. "And Michael," she continued, shifting her focus to the chef, "you've got passion, and you've shown that you care. You're going to help us reinvent the menu. We need new ideas, fresh energy." Michael smiled, the first genuine smile she had seen from him all week. "I'd love that," he said, his enthusiasm palpable. "And Victor," Emily added, turning to the senior concierge, "you've been here since day one. You're the heart and soul of this place. I want you to take over as the hotel's manager. You know what it takes to make this place feel like home. It's yours if you want it." Victor's eyes softened with surprise and gratitude. I don't know what to say, Emily. Thank you." The tension in the room began to lift. Emily could feel the shift as the staff, even the ones who had been uncertain of her, began to see that change was coming. But it wasn't a bad change, it was the beginning of a new chapter, one rooted in the same values her aunt had lived by. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Emily threw herself into the hotel's operations, bringing in new staff training programs, revising the guest experience, and most importantly, reinstating the sense of family that had been lost. She worked side by side with Michael to craft a new menu, one that highlighted the best local ingredients and captured the spirit of the mountains. Victor, as the new manager, implemented new systems for guest satisfaction, ensuring that every visitor felt welcome and valued. The hotel started to regain its old charm, but now with a fresh sense of purpose. Then, one evening, the unthinkable happened. A high-profile guest, a celebrity, arrived unexpectedly. The pressure was immense. The hotel wasn't fully booked, but the kitchen was understocked, and the staff was stretched thin. The old Emily might have panicked, but this new Emily was a leader. "We've got this," Emily said to Victor, her voice steady. She pulled together the team, including Michael, who worked tirelessly to create a special meal that would impress the guest. The night was a success, and when the guests left, they praised the service and the food, leaving a generous tip that would go a long way in motivating the staff. In the end, Emily had transformed the hotel, but it wasn't just about the renovations, the new staff, or the updated menu. It was about rediscovering what had made the place special in the first place: the heart, the soul, the family. Emily stood on that same balcony, looking out over the mountains, feeling a deep sense of peace. She had found her place here. The hotel was thriving, her aunt's legacy preserved, and Emily had become the leader she never thought she could be. And for the first time in a long while, Emily felt truly at home. So if you love this story, be sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and comment below. Your interaction helps us grow.